Initially, the way we got down there to start with was an old mountain climbing friend of Litto's had moved down there and married a Chilean woman. And he had a sort of guiding business. And he suggested that we come down there and bring some of my students from here.
Photo students.
Photo students, yeah. To bring some people down with us, which would pay our way. And he was raving about how beautiful it was, so he really thought we would respond to that. So we said, okay, we'll give it a try. And we sent out some emails to some of my students, and enough wanted to sign up that we could make it work. So that's how we got down there to begin with.
For the first time in 2002.
Yeah. And it really was love at first sight. It was just the most incredibly beautiful place that I'd ever seen. So we just decided to come back every year and bring more students. And so that was the plan. And then the second year we went down there, it was even more love at first sight. And we decided we needed a piece of this. So we started looking around for some property. And it took about a year to find something, but we found this absolutely incredible place. And so that's how we got there initially. But then as we began to spend more time there and explore that area, we learned a lot more about what was going on down there. And as incredibly beautiful and pristine as it is, it's also very threatened. And that seems to be the way things work in the world, that if a place is not developed, then people start poking around and looking for what they can do to develop it. So from the very beginning, we got involved in environmental issues that were going on down there. We met a lot of really interesting people who were very involved in that, and we became passionate about this area because it is so beautiful and it is so unspoiled.
Well, we should explain that Patagonia is a very big place, and it's not in one country, it's a region, and the word Patagonia really refers to the bottom of South America. It's the last 800 miles from the tip of South America northward. So it's the end of the cone of South America. It's the bottom of South America, you might say. It's half in Argentina on the eastern side of the Andes and half in Chile on the western side of the Andes. The Chilean side is much less known than the Argentine side of Patagonia. And the Argentine Patagonia has some beautiful big high mountains and big wild open pampas and steppes. But the Chilean side is much less known in the outside world, in the rest of the world. And it's a region of forests and lakes and rivers, as well as mountains and glaciers.
But the reason it's so unknown is because it's really cut off, even from the rest of Chile. And you can't get there unless you fly or take a boat or drive into Argentina and then come back across the Andes. So the area where we initially went and where we ended up buying some land and building a home is in that really remote cut-off part that is unknown Patagonia.
And it's pretty much unknown even to most Chileans. They think of Patagonia as the very bottom part, which is Tierra del Fuego and the Straits of Magellan, and Chile is divided into not several, but a dozen or so regions from north to south. The 12th region is the last one, and the capital is Punta Arenas, and it's right on the Straits of Magellan, and that's what Chileans think of when they think of Patagonia. But our region, the 11th region, is further north, and it's really spectacularly beautiful and almost unknown even within its own country, even to Chileans. So we found ourselves living in this paradise that had very few people in an enormous area. There's barely 100,000 people in this region, a large region. And so we started thinking of it as unknown Patagonia. And after being there for year after year, we would go back and spend each year more time, and ultimately we tend to spend about half the year in Chile, in Patagonia.
The area that where we live is actually the second largest lake in South America. It's over 100 miles from east to west. And it's been so protected by its remoteness that in this area, all the rivers and all the lakes are
Totally unpolluted.
that you can drink from them. You can drink directly from them and not worry about getting sick. It's unheard of that there are places like this still in the world. So since we moved down to this area, there's been a movement, and the reasons are complicated, but a movement to essentially dam all of the rivers in Patagonia, in this part of Patagonia. Up until this time, not any of them have been dammed. But they want to dam all of the rivers and create these enormous hydroelectric projects that will involve building the longest power lines in the world with the biggest towers in the world to send power north of Santiago into the mining region in the northern part of Chile. So it's this kind of insane project because the power lines are so long that they'll lose almost a third of the power in the transmission lines. And it will go through, I think it's 11 parks that exist. National parks and nature preserves.
And be very destructive. So the genesis of this project to dam virtually all the rivers in Patagonia and put in kind of mega dams and generate electricity and send it north is really the corruption of the Chilean government during the Pinochet dictatorship, when the very brutal military dictatorship under General Pinochet essentially sold for peanuts, really for bribes, the water rights to all the rivers in southern Chile to foreign energy companies, in particular a Spanish energy company called Endesa. And this was kind of suspect behavior to start with, to sell the country's water rights to foreigners, but they did it, and so this foreign company has nominally legal rights to exploit the water resources in southern Chile, and the question is what can they do to realize a maximum profit from their nominal rights that they really got in an underhanded way, mostly by bribery, it seems. And a large project under the name of Hydro-Aysén has been developed with the participation of a Chilean energy company as a joint venture partner with the Spaniards, and they have plans for 4 big dams on the 2 key rivers in Patagonia. And then other companies jumped on the bandwagon thinking, well, these guys are going to have to build big power lines to the north so we can dam everything else and export power. And it's totally destructive. And of course, the reason that people thought they could get away with these plans is that there are so few inhabitants, and they're just country people for the most part. They're subsistence farmers. It's not big ranching country.
And even the Chileans really don't know what's there. They don't know how incredibly beautiful this region is. So this is where we come in.
Yeah. For years, Linde has been contributing and giving free, of course, not charging, really beautiful landscape photographs of the countryside in central and northern Patagonia, where we live and where this area that's so beautiful and so threatened, to different Chilean groups like Ecosistemas and Chile Ambiente, and they've been using it in campaigns, really nationwide campaigns. And there's a large umbrella organization called Patagonia Sin Represas, which means Patagonia without dams, that's been using Linde's photographs in advertisements and billboards and a major campaign all across Chile. So that's been very helpful. I think our work there, Linde's work, has contributed something. But we also wanted to do our own thing. And so Linda and I published books, photo books, landscape photography, for some years, mostly about the West, the deserts and the mountains of Western United States. But it was time to do a book about Chile, so we designed and published a book called Unknown Patagonia. And it's essentially, it's a large format book of Linda's best photographs from really, now it's been 10 years, but when we did it, it was 8 years of photography in Patagonia.
Well, there's a long history of using photographs in the U.S., in the West in particular, where we've always lived, in environmental campaigns. And they've been very important. The Sierra Club was the initial source of that. We came up with the idea of using photographs to help win environmental fights. So we have a lot of experience in the U.S. with how that can be a powerful tool. And we just thought that this could be applied to Chile, where they don't really have that experience. All of these kinds of battles are new for them because they're really just developing.
It's a frontier.
Exactly. So it just seemed a natural thing for us to get involved in and do, since we did have this experience with doing books already in the U.S. We knew how to do this. And this was an area that we loved, and we thought, let's make this work. So we did this book ourselves, just to put this information out there and say, hey, this is what's here.
And it's too beautiful to ruin.
It's incredible, and it needs to be protected. And it's been an amazing ride. We put it out as an ebook and made it free, and it just has taken off.
Well, I should say that our initial book, Unknown Patagonia, was a large format printed book, a coffee table book, in English with an English text, but then we knew that the issues are South American, so it had to be translated. I wrote the text and designed the book, and it was Linda's photographs. It had to be translated into Spanish, and with the help of a very brilliant literary friend, or brilliant friend who has great literary talents, we made a terrific Spanish translation of the text. And even so, beautiful books are quite expensive, and they don't get as much circulation as they need. So we created an electronic book or ebook and started sending it out free. And it just took off and went viral in South America, and thousands and thousands of copies were passed from person to person in emails. And Linda, for example, in the less than a year, has received and answered over 1,500 emails thanking her for this book, La Patagonia Desconocida, which is really a kind of a love story about Patagonia, and a collection of, it's 120 pages, 120 photographs of the most beautiful scenes in our part of Patagonia. And it's a real eye-opener for Chileans and for other people in South America. And the ebook is now available in 5 languages, in Italian, Portuguese, German, Spanish, of course, and English, and soon in French. And it's being passed from person to person around the world.
Well, when this dam project was first proposed, it's been so interesting to watch what's happened, because initially the sort of propaganda was, well, Chile needs more power, this is clean energy, it's the logical thing to do. And the majority of the population was in favor of it. And then when this publicity started to show people actually what was involved, the area that would be really impacted, and the information was distributed, put out there for the public to see what could happen, it has totally turned the population around. So now in Chile, 80% of the population is opposed to these dams. If they had a vote, it would be stopped immediately. And in fact, it is having a big effect. Do you want to?
Yeah, because
Talk about that.
just recently, the good news is that the Chilean partners in this international consortium that's trying to develop hydro plants in southern Chile and dam all the rivers, the Chilean partners, Colbún, pulled out and said, we've been working for 10 years.
This is in
we've
the
spent
last week.
millions of dollars, and we're getting nowhere, and there's still no consensus in Chile about how we can move
In
forward.
fact, the people hate it.
And in fact, yeah, there's been, last year there were enormous demonstrations in the streets in Santiago against this dam project. Not just in the south, but in the capital of Chile. Spanish expression that's common in Chile, then they say that you have to do your part, or you have to contribute your small grain of sand, like aportar su granito de arena. So we think our photographs and our book and other stuff, we're just contributing our part. And Linda's also contributed photographs to other books. There was a big book called Patagonia sin represas that had a big impact. And we're continuing to work on using the photographs to kind of protect the future, if you will, and encourage kind of responsible development. And responsible development is one that will essentially preserve the integrity and biodiversity and beauty of the landscape, and not turn it into an industrial park. And we're just finishing a book on the unique and only road that goes through this part of Patagonia. It's called the Carretera Austral, the Southern Highway. But it's not really a highway, and a lot of the distance, it's a 1.5 lane dirt road. But it's so beautiful that we're trying to get the Chilean government to name it and designate it officially as the first national scenic highway in Chile. And so, to push that, we're creating another new book that should be published in the next month. And I think Linda's photographs are really helping. They're not sufficient to win the battle. You have to get people on your side. A lot of people are working very hard. There's been a tremendous outpouring of support and energy to try to save Patagonia from this destructive industrial development. But Linda's photographs are definitely part of it.
Well,
They have an important role to play.
It's just been interesting to get all of these letters from people that are writing very heartfelt letters saying that they had no idea that this incredible place existed, that it was part of Chile. Often it's Chileans that are writing, and they're saying that they're so proud to know that this exists, and they want to fight for it. You know, it's a combination of learning that it exists, saying this is so special, this is something we have, and it's threatened, and I'm going to do what I can to stop it. So that's been fantastic, really exciting.